Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Sunday and I was born into irony. I hope you're all having a positively dreadful day. So obviously I just watched Wednesday on Netflix. Let's discuss, shall we? And I'm back. No, I am not going to be doing this whole review with the Sunday persona, but it was a very nice intro, right? But anywho's, we are going to be diving into my thoughts and feelings on the new Netflix series Wednesday. I was about to say Sunday. Wednesday. But before we get into all of that good stuff, as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. Make sure you turn on your notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. And don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoy my reviews, or else Sunday will come after you. So now, without further ado, let's get into my review of Wednesday. So Wednesday was created by Alfred Gough and Miles Miller, but I'd mostly heard about this series because I'd heard that Tim Burton was going to be involved somehow. It turns out that he only directed a couple of episodes, so he wasn't quite as involved as I thought he would be, but this whole series definitely has a Tim Burton feel to it. It leans heavily on gothic imagery, which of course suits the titular character perfectly, and of course this character is an icon because she is from the Addams family. Now, I'm not particularly familiar with this franchise, if I'm being honest. I've never actually watched any of the Addams family things, whether they be movies or TV shows. I just haven't checked it out. But of course, I know about them just from, pop culture and how they've seeped into the zeitgeist. So they're an incredibly iconic family that I happen to know nothing about. But even with the very little knowledge that I have, I would say that one of the best qualities of this series is the casting of the Addams family itself. I think the casting here was just spot on. It was perfection. Whoever came up with the idea of casting Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia should get a raise immediately, because truly that is a stroke of genius. And then you also have Louise Guzman portraying Gomez Addams, which I think is again perfect casting for this character. But then I have to say the casting of the younger brother as well, who's portrayed by Lucius Hoyos, I think is also superb, because the entire family looks related. It looks like an actual family, and I love that. Some of you guys will know that one of my pet peeves in films and TV shows is when you have family members that look nothing alike, and here we have the perfect example of excellent casting for a family so that they can look like they are an actual family. The kids look biologically related to the parents, and that is just wild and excellent. And of course, alongside the perfect casting here, you have the hair, makeup and costuming that all comes together to create a perfect iteration of the Addams family, in my opinion. And I think all of the actors here did an exceptional job to make this version of this iconic family really stand out on its own and bring this family to a whole new generation. But of course, if we're talking about perfect casting here, we can't go a second longer without mentioning the iconic Wednesday herself, the titular character of the series, who is portrayed brilliantly by Jenna Ortega. Jenna did what needed to be done. Jenna understood the assignment. She did what needed to be done. Like, this is just perfection. And speaking of Tim Burton, she definitely falls in line with the, iconic Tim Burton girl, the Tim Burton muse, if you will. She seems to be this generation's Helena Bonham Carter or Eva Green. She's carrying that torch. She's carrying that tradition of being a Tim Burton muse, and here she delivers an exceptional performance as the titular character, who is very straight-faced. Okay, she's not an emotional character in the slightest, and that kind of inhibits you as an actor, I can imagine. As an Academy Award winning actress myself, I have some idea about this, and I can say that not being able to express emotions freely as a character is definitely going to inhibit you you somewhat, but Wednesday has these small telltale signs of what's going on in her head, how she's thinking and feeling, even if she's trying to conceal it on the outside. And I think that's all in Jenna Ortega's very intricate work here, in the way that she's able to portray this character. And it's, again, so tricky to portray an emotionless character, because it makes it harder to relate to her, right, as an audience member. But even though we see Wednesday blocking people out on the show, and we see her, you know, putting up this wall against anyone who tries to come in and get to know her and become friends with her, dare I say, dare to make a relationship with her, she's constantly blocking them out. And even though we see that, we still feel for her in moments where we're supposed to. We still empathize with the character when we're supposed to. And of course, as I often say, when you have a character like that is so opaque, when they do go through that arc of letting people in and cracking a smile, it's all the more powerful, it's all the more effective, because you see how far they've come. This is something that I said recently about the character of Dream, for instance, in The Sandman. Now, Jenna's performance is even more significant and even more of a triumph when you consider the fact that she is acting alongside Christina Ricci. Grown-up Christina Ricci, who previously portrayed the original iteration of Wednesday Addams. Do you know the amount of pressure that sis must have felt knowing that she was going to be acting alongside Christina Ricci? Now, like I said, I haven't watched any previous Addams Family projects, so I actually can't, you know, draw comparisons between the portrayals of this iconic character. But I do know for a fact that Christina Ricci's iteration of the character is considered iconic. It's the version that a lot of us think of when we think of Wednesday Addams, and so this is a very, very huge deal. But Jenna Ortega absolutely rises to this challenge and creates a whole new version of the character that younger audiences can absolutely latch on to. Now, I started off talking about the characters, even though usually I would talk about the characters in the second half of the review, but since they are my favorite part of this series, I figure I just discuss this right here before we get into some of the issues that I have with it. And so, sticking to the theme of characters, one of my very favorites from this show, hands down would be Thing. Thing is an icon. Thing is a legend. Have I ever seen a character with no face, no eyes, no mouth, no ability to speak or communicate in any meaningful way? Have I ever seen a character in such a small category excel so wonderfully on a show? Have I ever seen such a character connect with me so deeply on a show or a movie? I don't think I have. I have to say, for me, Thing is my second favorite sidekick character of the whole year. Second only to the little cat, the mechanical robot cat from Lightyear. Yeah, that's number one. But Thing is a strong number two. What an excellent character. Let's all give a hand for Thing. Another character that stood out to me was Enid. I really enjoyed the character of Enid. She's the young werewolf who hasn't transformed yet, so her mother is, you know, impatiently waiting for her to do so, and it's creating a lot of pressure within her. And by the way, I think that was a really great storyline for the character, the fact that they use Parents' Weekend in order to allow us to get a little bit more of an insight into some of these main characters. And in the case of Enid, it explores the fact that she is being pressured by her mother in particular to, you know, become a werewolf, and she wants to hurry the process along by dragging Enid to a werewolf conversion camp, which, you know, that language is very intentional. You know, there's a commentary there on something. I wonder if you can tell what it is. But, you know, in the case of Enid, she decides that she doesn't want to go to any camps. She doesn't want to change herself in any way. She's accepting the fact that even though it is taking a little bit longer for her to transform for the very first time, she is more than willing to wait, you know, and allow things to progress naturally, without having to change herself or compromise herself in any way in order to force her body to meet her mum's high expectations and unreasonable timeline. And she also has that other storyline where she's dating that Gorgon who he turns himself into stone. like looking at a mirror. My guy is so careless. Like my guy is just like throwing a towel on top of his mirror and hoping for the best. Literally fingers crossed, hoping for the best. You would think that if you're a gorgon, born a gorgon, okay, and your biggest issue is turning others and yourself into stone, whether it be temporary or not, you would think that you would have the foresight to have like permanent curtains in front of all the mirrors in your vicinity. You would in fact take those mirrors down. You don't need these mirrors. Take the mirrors down, okay? Or if you have like a roommate like he does, I believe, then at least have curtains there so that when you're showering, they need to be shut. They need to be shut, because otherwise, look what happens now. Look what happens now. He's turned himself into stone, and now Enid is just standing there. You know, she thinks she's being stood up for their date, and she's just like wondering, looking at her clock, wondering where the hell he is. It's embarrassing, quite frankly. And similarly to Enid, I also really enjoyed getting a bit of an insight into the life of Bianca, who starts off as Wednesday's enemy, you know, the typical popular chick who's good at everything and she's the best and everyone worships her. And then Wednesday comes in and she's the freak, you know, she's the outsider of all outsiders in a school of outsiders, or outcasts I should say. And Bianca is clearly at the top of the food chain when Wednesday arrives. But as time progresses, they start to see a little bit more eye to eye and they form a tenuous alliance. Much like with Enid, in the episode that surrounds the parents' weekend, we get to see a little bit more of Bianca's backstory. She is a siren, and her siren song is able to lure her unsuspecting victims and get them to do whatever she wants them to. But Bianca doesn't want to live the same life that her mother has. You know, her mother has used her siren song to lure people into this cult where she's able to basically drain all of the money out of them. And I think that's a very interesting concept, by the way. But also the idea that her mother is starting to lose her siren song, you know, it's starting to dry up, as she said, I think is also fascinating. And she's trying to get her daughter to come back into this life, even though that's exactly what Bianca was trying to escape when she created a whole new life for herself and a whole new identity. And then lastly, before we get into the story, the last character that really stood out to me was Headmaster Weems. I loved Gwendolyn Christie in this role. I thought she was perfect. I love the way that she towered over everyone. Okay, everyone else looked like children next to her, but I've loved the roles that she's chosen, especially in these like Netflix projects like The Sandman, where she portrays Lucifer, and then here where she's portraying this headmaster who was a previous student herself, and she is eager to protect the reputation of this school no matter what, which is difficult to do when you have a string of murders that are seemingly being caused by a monster. And with that, we lead into the plot of the series, and this is where some of the issues that I have start to pop up. So first of all, in the first episode, it is very quickly established that Wednesday is a tough nut to crack. She has been to 7 different schools in 8 years or whatever it is. She has been moving schools a lot because of her troublesome activities. At the beginning of the first episode, we see her pull an awful prank on the swim team who has been bullying her brother. She throws bags of piranhas in the swimming pool whilst they're still in there, and the swim team captain ends up, you know, missing a testicle, like his testicle gets eaten off or something. Listen, Wednesday is not playing games. Y'all are playing games, she ain't. Wednesday's pranks are on a whole different level, and it gets her expelled from the school, and she ends up having to go to the last resort, which is the school for outcasts that her parents actually went to. Now, on the face of it, it seems like going to this school for outcasts would actually be perfect for Wednesday. Perhaps she could fit in a little bit better because she's clearly not going to fit in with the normie population. But the big thing, the big hurdle that's preventing her from getting excited about this, well, actually, she's never going to get excited about anything, but but the main reason why she's not overly enthusiastic about going to the school is because her mother left behind such a huge legacy, and she feels like she would just be forced to, you know, be in this boarding school underneath her mother's shadow forever. And so she is trying to avoid that outcome because she wants to carve out a whole different path for herself. But as you see throughout the series, that influence that her mother has had on her is inescapable. And perhaps it's something that she doesn't need to want to escape. Perhaps it's something that she can embrace within herself and allow it to shape her as a whole new person. Someone that's not identical to her mother or father, but someone who's definitely been raised and influenced by them. And I think that's one of the strongest plot points in the story. The exploration of the character of Wednesday and the relationship that she has with her parents. The fact that we see her avoiding them at all costs, and in fact they send over Thing in order to spy on her because she's so closed off to them. But then in the end, or especially in the episode where they come for a visit during Parents' Weekend, they end up having this adventure or this misadventure where her father gets arrested for a 20-year-old murder and her mother is just being Catherine Zeta-Jones. What? What do you want me to say? Catherine Zeta-Jones, side note, Catherine Zeta-Jones looked incredible as Morticia. Catherine Zeta-Jones's long black hair is living in my head rent-free. That is it's such a look. Guys, oh my goodness. I can't get over how perfect this casting is. Anyways, back to the plot. Oh God, her hair. How many bundles do you think that took? Anyway. Going back to the plot. During Parents' Weekend, we see Gomez and Morticia go through it as secrets in their past become unearthed, and things that they thought they had run away from, they are forced to confront once more years and years later. And I think the whole plot point surrounding Gomez being accused of murder is just a really great storytelling device to allow the family to come together and work together to resolve this issue and have Wednesday be on her family's side so that she finds some resolution in herself when it comes to her relationship with her parents. And I actually ended up enjoying the storylines surrounding Wednesday and her parents so much that I kind of wish that more of this series was focused on that dynamic. I kind of wished more of the series was just set in their house, seeing what they were getting up to. And I know that that's more akin to the previous iterations of this family and this franchise, but I don't know, I would have liked to see more of this version of the Addams family. I think it's a bit of a shame that she ended up having to go to a boarding school, although Netflix clearly loves boarding schools over there in Netflix HQ. But then you get into the main storyline, a murder mystery, as people have been dropping dead left, right and center with missing appendages, and it's clear to Wednesday at least that a monster has been causing it, especially because at the very beginning of the series we see her come face to face with said monster. Okay, like she's like, I saw this monster. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a mountain lion. It was a monster. Now, if I'm being honest, this was the storyline that I personally didn't love quite as much. I can't really put my finger on why. Actually, yes, I can. I think it was a little bit boring. I think it was a little bit boring, and I think it took a little bit too long to get interesting. There were parts of this series, particularly in the middle there, where it got a little bit boring, a little bit repetitive, and those episodes started to kind of blur together. I just didn't find Wednesday's Sherlocking quite as entertaining as I thought I would, and I felt like the mystery it felt like it was dragged out a little bit, especially because, if I'm being honest, I suspected that it was Christina Ricci all along. I knew. Now, to be fair, what I didn't suspect was that Tyler would end up being the monster. That's something that I didn't see coming. I did actually think that it was Xavier for a while there, until like the very end where he was like, it's not me, and I was like, maybe it isn't him. Like, maybe he's not lying. But when Wednesday realized that it was Tyler after having that dramatic vision, I thought that was a pretty good reveal. I thought that was pretty solid. And also, what was particularly good was at the end there, where you think that Tyler has returned and has sided with Wednesday against Christina Ricci. But in actuality, it's Headmaster Weems who has, shapeshifted into Tyler. I thought that was a nice touch, and I was really, really sad to see see Headmaster Weems go. I just don't think she needed to die. Like, I don't know if Gwendolyn Christie was like, I'm only doing this for one season, but sis didn't need to die. I think if Eugene was able to survive a monster attack, then Headmaster Weems should have been okay. And it's a testament again to Gwendolyn Christie's performance in this series, because on paper she should be the enemy. On paper I really should not like her, because she was doing some dodgy things, and yes, it was for an admirable cause. You know, she wanted to conserve the reputation of Nevermore, that's it, Nevermore Academy. The whole time I was wondering what this school is called. He's also trying to preserve the reputation of the town, and so that's why they kind of get along, because they're willing to do whatever it takes to ensure that, you know, nothing seems amiss. But obviously all of those secrets and lies that are buried beneath come rising to the surface when everything reaches a breaking point. And when it comes to exploring the reputation of this town and secrets being buried beneath, I think this was very cleverly written. You know, they fed in some really interesting social commentary about the history of these towns founded by pilgrims, by Puritan pilgrims that conquered lands and colonized them. I think they integrated that real life history really well to be a part of this fictional land story, and it gave us some, you know, very relevant commentary about how native peoples were driven out by the early colonizers of North America. And in this series overall, it's definitely not a stretch to say that the outcasts are a stand-in for any marginalized groups in real life society who are, you know, oppressed or mistreated by the majority. And when it comes to the vibe of the series overall, I would say that whilst it's obvious, it definitely took some cues from Tim Burton's works and his iconography and just the whole kind of gothic atmosphere that Tim Burton does so well. You also have an incredible score by none other than Danny Elfman himself, a frequent Tim Burton collaborator. But like I said, I was surprised to see that Tim Burton didn't actually direct all of the episodes, nor did he create this series. So they did a really good job of marketing it as something from Tim Burton's mind, but actually it's not quite that. And I will say, you know, whilst I was watching the series, I did think that he had directed all of the episodes, because I wasn't paying attention to the credits, you see. But I couldn't help but think as I was watching it that it felt like Tim Burton-Lite. Like, it didn't quite feel like pure Burton, even though it is adequately weird, okay, and quite gothic. There was also this like overlayer of Netflix, something that could only be described as a Netflixification. There we go. I was wondering how I'd be able to pronounce that, but yeah, Netflixification. It doesn't quite feel like you're getting the concentrated Tim Burton flavor. There's definitely been a little bit of tampering with this formula to make it a bit more palatable for the masses, and you can definitely tell that Netflix has made this so that it can fit perfectly into the same category as a Sabrina, for instance. Like, it feels like it would be a great double bill for you to watch Sabrina and then carry on and continue on with Wednesday. And one major example of this Netflixification to me, okay, would definitely be the love triangle storyline, where we see Wednesday being pursued by both Tyler and Xavier. And, you know, the latter is actually accused of murder, okay, suspected of murder for the majority of the season. So that relationship is a little bit rocky. Like, I know that Wednesday is into the dark and the grim and the gritty, but, you know, being with a murderer, especially someone who's still murdering, I don't know, there needs to be a line somewhere, sis. But in the case of Tyler, he's supposed to be the normie that likes Wednesday. Like, he is supposed to be the nice guy next door, who likes her and sees her for who she really is and all of that, except it turns out that it's all crap because he's the monster that's been killing all of. So I think that romantic storyline felt quite Netflix. Like, Netflix cannot have a teenage character on screen that does not have a love interest. This is a very Hollywood thing. Although maybe I'm the hypocrite, because having said all of that, I low-key was rooting for Wednesday to end up with Xavier. Even before we found out that he actually wasn't the monster, I was like, you know what? Maybe if we just compartmentalize, okay, our information about this guy, maybe if we could just put the monster stuff to one side because they have so much in common. They're both psychic. He's dark and broody. Listen, if you're asking me which team I was on, I was Team Xavier, okay? And let me know down in the comments below which team you guys were on. I guess this is why Hollywood does this. So overall, guys, I had a really fun time with Wednesday. I think that Jenna Ortega did a phenomenal job with this character. She perfectly embodied this brooding, gothic, not like other girls type character. I do think they laid it on a little bit thick, you know, the whole not like other girls element. But I'll allow it because I do think that if anyone could get away with it, it's Wednesday, who is such an iconic, gothic, alternative character. With all of that being said, I'm going to be giving Wednesday a 7 out of 10. So that's it from me, guys. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on Wednesday, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of the series down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, bye.